What if the RV life you see on social media, the sunsets, the scenic campsites, the smiling couples, wasn't freedom at all? What if it was survival? Right now, across America, thousands of people are being forced out of apartments, priced out of rentals, and left with one desperate option: living in a vehicle. And the most common choice? An old RV. Not for adventure, not for travel, but because it's the last affordable shelter they can find. Cities that once allowed overnight parking are now slamming the door shut. Some have passed strict laws that ban RVs from staying more than 2 hours in one place. Others are ticketing, towing, and impounding vehicles without warning, knowing full well that for the people inside, those RVs are their homes. Families are waking up in parking lots. Seniors are riding out extreme heat in broken-down rigs with no air conditioning. And parents are trying to homeschool their kids inside 20-year-old campers parked beside gas stations and abandoned lots. This isn't a fringe issue, it's exploding. More and more people with full-time jobs, even stable incomes, are being forced into this lifestyle. Not because they want to travel, but because they have nowhere else to go. The rent is too high, the rules are too strict, and the system wasn't built for what's coming next. And by the time we reach the end of this video, you'll see the full picture. The hidden crisis that's quietly unfolding in neighborhoods across the country. Because the final point we reveal, it proves that even people who do everything right still end up sleeping in RVs, praying they don't get towed in the middle of the night. At number 11, we're exposing one of the biggest myths surrounding RV living today: that people chose this life. Social media loves to sell you the dream. Pictures of smiling couples sipping coffee in the desert, cozy beds with mountain views, solar panels glowing in the sunset. It looks like freedom. But for thousands of people right now, this isn't a lifestyle. It's a last resort. The truth is, most of these RV dwellers didn't downsize by choice. They were pushed out. Some lost their homes after rent spiked overnight. Others couldn't find affordable housing after a divorce, job loss, or medical emergency. And then there's the silent wave no one talks about. People who make a full-time income but still can't afford a place to live. They work every day, they clock in, they pay taxes, and at night they crawl into a van, a trailer, or a 30-year-old motorhome because there's no room left in the housing market. You'd think RV life would mean adventure, but for these people, it means showering at a truck stop. It means cooking dinner with a camping stove behind a warehouse. It means constantly looking over your shoulder, hoping you don't get that dreaded knock at 3 a.m., telling you to move or face a fine. Many of them park in industrial zones, side streets, or even rotate through neighborhoods trying not to get noticed. They're not camping, they're surviving. What makes it worse is the judgment. Outsiders assume this is a freewheeling lifestyle, that they're taking it easy. But you try keeping your job, your dignity, and your sanity when your entire life is parked between two yellow lines. The next time someone says they chose RV life, remember this: people don't choose a metal box on wheels unless every other door has already slammed shut. But if you think that truth is hard to swallow, wait until you see how cities are actually making things worse. At number 10, we're facing the cold reality that many cities across the country are actively pushing RV dwellers out. Not just ignoring them, but targeting them. If you think finding a safe place to park overnight is as easy as pulling into a quiet lot, think again. Laws are changing fast and not in favor of the people who need shelter the most. In major urban areas, what used to be tolerated has now become criminalized. Cities are banning overnight parking on public streets, restricting RVs from remaining in one spot longer than a couple of hours, and issuing fines that many of these residents simply can't afford. And once those fines stack up, the tow trucks come next. Vehicles get impounded, belongings disappear, and with no address, no money, and no legal ground to stand on, the owners have no way to fight back. For someone living in their RV, that tow notice isn't just a citation, it's an eviction. Walmart used to be a last safe haven for overnight parking, but even that lifeline is drying up. More and more stores are banning overnight stays due to city pressure, liability fears, or complaints from local residents. And without access to proper campgrounds, which are often fully booked or unaffordable, RV dwellers are pushed deeper into hiding. Industrial areas, abandoned lots, side roads in the middle of nowhere. They move constantly, not because they want to explore, but because they have no choice. If they stay still too long, the tickets come. If they try to settle, the police show up. Think about that. No stability, no safety, no peace, just the constant fear of being noticed. And in some cities, even the act of helping someone by renting out an RV as being criminalized. The message is clear. If you can't afford a traditional home, you're not welcome, no matter where you try to go. But if you think the streets are unfriendly, wait until you see what kind of conditions people are actually living in once they're forced into these RVs. At number 9, we're opening the door, literally, to a reality few people ever see. What it's actually like inside these RVs when they're not vacation homes, but permanent shelter. From the outside, you might think it's manageable. A roof, 4 walls, a little mobility. But step inside and the picture changes fast. Because these aren't well-maintained luxury coaches. They're old, often broken, and dangerously unfit for full-time living. Most RVs used in this crisis are decades old. They were never designed for long-term residency, especially not in extreme weather. In the summer, they turn into ovens. Heat builds up fast, and with no working air conditioning, it becomes nearly impossible to breathe. In the winter, they become ice boxes. There's no insulation, no safe heat source, and condensation builds up on every surface. Mold creeps into the walls. Pipes freeze. Wires corrode. These are not just uncomfortable conditions, they're unsafe. Then there's the water situation. Many of these RVs have no working plumbing. Black tanks overflow or leak. Freshwater tanks go dry and are rarely sanitized. That means no running toilets, no hot showers, and sometimes not even a functioning sink. Residents often rely on bottled water, gym restrooms, or even washing up with baby wipes in the dark. It's a constant game of patching things up just enough to get by one more night. Electrical issues are just as common. Old wiring, damaged outlets, and faulty breakers create a serious fire risk. One short circuit, one frayed wire, and that metal box becomes a trap. Add in broken appliances, sagging roofs, pests, and leaks, and the fantasy of RV life completely falls apart. But here's the worst part. Many people inside these RVs are still trying to hold down jobs, care for kids, or manage chronic health issues, all while living in conditions that would violate basic housing codes if they were in a building. There are no inspections, no safety nets, just a shell on wheels that keeps them barely out of the rain, but never truly safe. And if you thought living inside the RV was bad, just wait until you see what happens when it breaks down completely and there's no money left to fix it. At number 8, we hit one of the most brutal realities RV dwellers face, the breakdown spiral. It starts with hope. Someone scrapes together $3,000 to buy a used RV. It's old, but it runs. It has a roof. It feels like a second chance. But what they don't realize is that RV is a ticking time bomb, and the moment it breaks down, the trap snaps shut. Repairs on RVs aren't cheap. A blown transmission? That's $4,000. Brake issues? Another $1,000. If the generator fails, and many do, you're looking at weeks without power unless you have another $2,000 to replace it. Even basic repairs like a leaky roof or broken fridge can cost hundreds. These vehicles weren't built for long-term survival, especially not while parked on city streets and driven only occasionally. When something breaks, it's not a simple fix, it's a full-blown financial crisis. And here's where it gets worse. Most of these residents don't have savings. They've already spent everything they had to get the RV in the first place. So when it breaks, they can't move it. And when they can't move it, the city marks it as abandoned. That's when the towing threats begin. Suddenly, the only shelter they have is in danger. Not because they did anything wrong, but because they couldn't afford a repair bill. Some people try to sell broken-down rigs for scrap. Others try desperate fixes with duct tape, tarps, or junkyard parts. But it's a losing battle. With every mechanical failure, the RV becomes less livable and more of a liability. Doors don't lock, windows won't shut, heating systems die. The very thing that was supposed to give them safety becomes a daily source of anxiety and fear. This is the spiral. Buy cheap, break down, go broke. And once you're stuck, the descent happens fast. You can't move, can't park legally, can't fix anything, and yet you're still expected to act like you're just living the dream. But what happens when this broken shelter isn't just yours, but your entire family's? That's where we're heading next, and it's heartbreaking. At number 7, we shift from survival to heartbreak because it's not just individuals living in these collapsing RVs. It's entire families, parents, toddlers, babies in diapers, all packed into small, outdated motorhomes, trying to hold on to some sense of normal. But the truth is, when an RV becomes your only home and there's no money left for maintenance, things start to rot, literally. Inside, conditions deteriorate fast. Carpets are soaked with years of moisture. Black mold creeps through the walls. Toilets don't flush. Showers don't work. Trash piles up in bins that can't be emptied, and cooking is often done on portable stoves surrounded by clutter and flammable materials. Some families go weeks without a real bath. Others rely on gallon jugs and wet wipes just to keep their kids clean. It's not roughing it, it's filth. And for growing children, the consequences are devastating. Imagine trying to raise a toddler in a 20-foot RV with no running water. Imagine no safe space to crawl or play, no quiet place to study, no private place to sleep. Every inch becomes shared, noisy, chaotic, and deeply stressful. Parents try their best. They hang blackout curtains. They clean with vinegar and baking soda. They work overnight shifts while their kids nap in the heat. But it's never enough. Not when the plumbing fails, not when rats chew through wiring, not when the air smells like mildew and old tank waste. And the emotional toll? It's massive. Children grow up thinking constant movement is normal, that hiding from police flashlights is part of bedtime, that brushing your teeth behind a grocery store counts as getting ready for school. These aren't just bad conditions. They're the kinds of environments that leave deep, lasting trauma. And yet, these families are often invisible. They're not in shelters. They're not counted in official homeless numbers. They're hidden behind tinted glass in parking lots and side streets until something breaks or someone calls and everything comes crashing down. And when that happens, the next step isn't help, it's punishment. Just wait until you see how the system responds to these struggling families. At number 6, we face one of the most frustrating and infuriating truths of this crisis. The people living in RVs aren't just struggling, they're being punished for it, because in many cities, being poor isn't just hard, it's treated like a crime. Picture this. A mother parks her RV on the side of a quiet industrial street. She's working a part-time job, her kids are asleep in the back, and she plans to leave before sunrise. But sometime after midnight, a patrol car pulls up. An officer knocks on the door. She's told she's violating a parking ordinance, sometimes one that was passed just weeks earlier. She's handed a citation she can't afford to pay. And if it happens again, the RV could be impounded, which means everything inside, her clothes, her kids' toys, her only shelter, is gone. This isn't an exaggeration. Cities are enforcing laws that specifically target vehicle dwellers. No overnight parking, no sleeping in cars, no habitating on public property. Some even ban giving food or water to those living in vehicles, claiming it encourages loitering. In some neighborhoods, security patrols are hired not to protect people, but to drive them away. And once the tickets start, the spiral begins. Fines pile up, court dates get missed, warrants are issued, and suddenly someone who was just trying to stay warm in an RV is now considered a criminal. It doesn't end there. Cities also fine residents for expired registration, broken taillights, or having excessive trash near their RV, ignoring the fact that there's nowhere legal for them to dump their waste or get repairs. They're given rules but no options, restrictions but no support. It's like being pushed into a corner, then blamed for standing there. And for the people caught in this cycle, the message becomes painfully clear. We don't want you here. Not in a home, not in an RV, not anywhere. But it gets worse, because when even the people trying to help, offering a place to sleep or a rig to rent, step in, they're now being treated like criminals too. At number 5, the story takes an even darker turn, because now it's not just the RV dwellers being punished, it's the people trying to help them. That's right, in several cities, offering shelter, renting out RVs, or even giving space to park is being criminalized. The system isn't just ignoring the problem, it's actively shutting down anyone who dares to offer a solution. Take this example. A homeowner has extra space on their property. Out of compassion, they let a struggling friend park an RV in the driveway. No noise, no mess, just someone quietly trying to stay afloat. But the city gets wind of it, and suddenly the homeowner is slapped with zoning violations, threats of fines, or worse, eviction orders. In some areas, even plugging an RV into a household outlet is considered illegal. The message is clear. If you can't afford a home and someone tries to help you survive, the city will shut it down. And it's not just homeowners. So-called van lords, people who rent RVs or vans to those with nowhere to live, are being targeted too. Now, yes, some do exploit the desperate, charging outrageous prices for broken-down rigs. But others, they're just offering a lifeline, a way for someone to avoid freezing on the sidewalk or sleeping under a bridge. Yet the laws don't distinguish. Anyone who provides an RV as shelter is now being lumped into the same bucket, fined, harassed, and sometimes even prosecuted. What kind of system punishes compassion? What kind of world forces people to choose between turning someone away or risking everything by helping them? These aren't drug dealers or scammers. These are teachers, grocery clerks, disabled veterans, single parents, and the neighbors who try to give them a place to breathe. But if even helping someone in need is becoming a crime, where do we draw the line? And the cruelest twist? Even if someone in an RV wants to get help, to find housing, access benefits, or apply for work, they often can't. Why? Because the next obstacle isn't visible from the outside. It's hidden in paperwork, and it shuts the door before they can even knock. At number 4, we come to one of the most quietly brutal truths about life in an RV. If you don't have a legal address, you barely exist on paper. You can't apply for housing assistance. You can't register for certain benefits. In many cases, you can't even get a job. Because when the system asks, where do you live? A street, a zip code, an apartment number, it won't accept RV in a parking lot as an answer. Think about that. Someone loses their apartment, manages to hold on to an old camper, and starts living on the edge. They're trying to get back on their feet. They want a better job. They want to apply for a rental subsidy or Medicaid, but every form they fill out asks for an address they don't have. And without it, the application stalls. The aid is denied. The case is closed. Some people try to use P.O. boxes, but that doesn't always work. Government programs often reject mailing centers as proof of residency. Some try to list a friend's home, but if that address is audited, the whole process collapses. Others get creative, bouncing between shelters or day centers just to collect mail, never knowing if a critical document was lost, delayed, or returned. And it's not just paperwork. Without an address, you can't open a bank account, apply for many jobs, or even get a replacement ID in some states. The consequences stack up fast. You're locked out of opportunities, not because you lack the drive, but because the system was never designed to handle mobility or poverty at this scale. Worse, having no address often means you're invisible in data. You're not counted in official homelessness reports. You're not prioritized for aid. You're part of a hidden crisis that grows quietly in parking lots, alleyways, and dead-end streets. And the longer you're off the radar, the harder it becomes to climb back on. But if you think the system forgetting you is bad, just wait, because in the next case, it doesn't forget you, it targets you, especially if you're a woman alone in the dark. At number 3, we confront the terrifying reality that RV life isn't just unstable, it's dangerous. And for women living alone, that danger isn't hypothetical, it's constant. When your home has wheels and paper-thin walls, there's no such thing as true safety. There's just survival, and sometimes silence. Imagine this. You're a woman in your 50s. You lost your apartment after a divorce. You managed to buy a second-hand RV to live in. It's not pretty, but it runs. At night, you park in a quiet lot, pull the curtains tight, and try not to move. Because the moment someone sees you're alone, everything changes. You hear footsteps outside. You hear knocks on your door that aren't from police. Sometimes they're followed by voices, demands, threats, and the worst part, you know if you call for help, it might make things even more dangerous. Many women living in RVs report being followed, harassed, even assaulted, and they often don't report it, not because they're afraid of police, but because they fear being towed, fined, or forced to move again. So they stay quiet, they hide, they carry pepper spray, they sleep with one eye open and the engine key in their hand, ready to drive off at a moment's notice. This isn't fear-mongering, it's daily reality, and it's made worse by the fact that women are more likely to be targeted if their rig looks worn down or unstable. Predators assume they're isolated, that they can't fight back, that no one will hear them. And far too often, they're right. There are Facebook groups, burner phones, and informal watch networks among women RV dwellers because that's what it takes to stay alive, not to thrive, just to make it to morning. And still, they keep going because they have no other choice. But if you think these women are vulnerable now, imagine what happens when their rigs break down completely and they're forced to abandon them. Not just their shelter, but their last piece of dignity. We're getting close to the end now. And item number 2, it shows exactly what happens when RV life ends in total collapse. At number 2, we reach what many fear, but few talk about, the collapse point. This is when the RV finally gives out. When the brakes seize, the roof caves, the engine dies, or maybe all three at once. It's not just broken, it's done, unmovable, unsafe, unlivable. And when that happens, the person inside loses everything. Again, there's no insurance payout, no roadside rescue, no backup plan. Once the RV is dead, the spiral goes into free fall. The city marks it for removal. Yellow notices appear on the windshield. If the person doesn't have hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars to tow it away. They're told to leave within 72 hours. Some try to protest, others beg for more time, but the outcome is usually the same. A tow truck arrives, the RV is hooked, and everything inside, clothing, food, photos, pets, is hauled off like garbage. And what's left behind? A person with nowhere to go, now on foot, now exposed to the elements, maybe with a few bags, maybe not. This is how RV living ends for many people. Not with a better home, not with a successful transition, but with one last push off the edge. And here's the sick irony. The collapse point isn't sudden, it's slow. You hear the engine groaning for months. You smell the rot in the walls. You know the fridge is broken, the windows won't close, the floor's sagging. You patch it up. You pray it lasts another week. But eventually the problems outpace the patches. The RV becomes a trap you can't fix and can't leave until someone forces you to. This is where dreams die. This is where people cry, not because they lost a vehicle, but because they lost the last thing holding their life together. And yet this isn't the bottom, because the final item on our list, it shows that even doing everything right, paying your way, keeping your RV clean, following the rules, still isn't enough, because the biggest blow doesn't come from breakdowns, fines, or fear. It comes from being rejected by the very system you tried to trust. At number 1, we face the most devastating truth of all. Once you fall into RV homelessness, there may be no way back. Not because people aren't trying, not because they're lazy or careless or hopeless, but because the system is designed to keep them exactly where they are, or worse. Many of these people had jobs, had savings, had plans. When life knocked them down, a layoff, a medical bill, a landlord raising rent, they did what they thought was smart. They bought an RV, a mobile safety net, a way to stay out of shelters to avoid sleeping in the street. For a while it worked. They parked quietly. They paid for fuel. They cooked their own meals. Some even worked remotely or picked up side gigs. They believed they could bounce back. But over time, the walls closed in. One city banned overnight parking, another banned RVs on public land. A job application was denied because they had no address. A bank rejected them for the same reason. The RV needed repairs they couldn't afford. The generator died. Then came the tickets, the tows, the judgment, the whispers from neighbors, the looks from police, and slowly hope drained away. This isn't a temporary detour for many of these people. It becomes a permanent reality, because climbing out of it means somehow getting first and last month's rent for an apartment, while also fixing a broken RV, keeping up insurance, staying safe, working a job, caring for kids, and navigating a system that requires proof of things you lost long ago. ID, credit history, paperwork, references. Every door says access denied, and so they stay in their rigs, or they lose them and fall even further. This is the silent crisis rolling down highways and parked outside big box stores. These aren't vacationers, these aren't rebels, these are working families, retirees, disabled veterans, and no one's coming to help. Because the lie we've been told is that they chose this. But now you know better. If you found this video eye-opening, hit that like button. It tells the algorithm that this issue matters and helps more people see what's really happening on our streets. And don't forget to subscribe for more investigative stories just like this, because staying informed is the first step toward real change. And if you're wondering which RVs are actually safe to live in, or which ones are money traps waiting to happen, watch this next video. It might just save you from making a very expensive mistake.